You know what's the similarity between a psychopath and a person who has a flu? You can see it in their eyes. This is your intro. I have tried to hide the fact that my nose is like a rupturing freaking pepper that's just red on the side by like powdering it, like, like they did in 1950s. They'll go to the door. I'm like, I'm gonna powder my nose. My relationship with makeup is different, but yeah, I just thought about that. I was like, you can still see it in like my eyes, in the fact that only my nose is powdered. In the fact there's discoloration everywhere and I can't really keep my eyes open, but yeah, sure, you do you. Just like a freaking psychopath. Hi, Maya, they don't care about that. You're in the presence of greatness. Please address them properly, okay? Okay, that's done talking with my alter ego. Hi, this is Gone Bad. It's a series I do on Wednesdays when I sit down on my fat ass, sometimes my sick ass, and I tell you a story about a person that has led a normal life before turning to the life of crime. A kind of criminal we have not spoken about on this channel until today, that is, until this very day, is a criminal that is forced to become one. And I'm not talking like by childhood, by their decisions or anything like that. No, they're literally kidnapped or a gun is forced to their head and they're asked to do something criminal, otherwise a member of their family is going to pay. And in turn, they need to convince the police that they're actually not a criminal, that they're a victim themselves. Just a quick sideline here before we dive into this case. This is a legitimate fear of mine, okay? Don't make fun of me, because I always think about this situation and I have heard of a case and I couldn't find it anywhere now. It's one of those older cases, like non John Wojtowicz, not the evil genius one with a collar bomb heist. I know all of this. Not Patty Hearst, know all of that one. I covered those for the podcast and for this channel, by the way. There was a case of another bank manager, like a really famous one in the past, and I have googled like all of the combination of words and I couldn't find it. But ever since I've heard of that case, this became a legitimate fear. And the fear is, how do you signal people? Like, how do you do everything right? Like, what if they're listening in? What if you can't even just resort to CCTV? Or if you can't make any signs on CCTV, or if you can't pass a note to the teller or tell them anything because they are in the bank as well as you. It's just there's so many complications and like you need to do everything right in order to prove that you were the innocent party in that. Because as you will see from the stories I'm going to be telling you today, everybody sees these victims as the perpetrators of these crimes because it is just insane and bizarre and you kind of need to understand it from their perspective. So I will be ending this episode sort of telling you what I think the right way to deal with this situation is based on the internet searches while I was researching this. So leave in the comments if this is anybody else's fear or is it just mine. I just have different fears of being found guilty when I'm actually innocent. I have covered a while ago for Hauntsville. So during Halloween week, I'll leave that link in the description box. Criminal UK episode with Kit Harington, where this guy has been falsely accused of a rape of a woman and how that has been affecting his career, even just when pulled in for a police interrogation, how it immediately trickles down, your name gets released to the media, and then you need to start clearing your name from the get-go even when you might be completely innocent. So this is definitely a fear of mine. But now, the case of the day. Try to imagine the following sequence of events. You are working for a credit union, you work as the CFO there, and after a hard day of work, you have just pulled into your garage. You are literally just parking up your car, you're going back home where you live with your mom because you moved in with your mom after your dad passed away, so you're helping her grieve, and you're just going home. You're expecting to sit in front of a TV, chill, have dinner, go to bed, and continue the next day, go back to work. But unfortunately, what you didn't know is that two men have actually been stalking you for the past couple of weeks, and they had a formal dossier on you. First, they have found you on LinkedIn, they have found your social media pages, and they realized you were a perfect target because they're targeting credit union employees. Then they went to your branch of work because the branch was on your LinkedIn page. And from there on, they were just waiting for you to get off work to just follow you home to learn where you live. Once they were there, they would climb onto the trees surrounding your house, and they would have the night vision goggles on their face, or they would just chill there like freaking creeps for hours, looking for blind spots, looking for spots that neighbors can't see from their windows and houses, looking for different spots that people cannot access or see during the night at a time once you're coming back from work, even if they're looking from the street view. Once they're aware of your schedule, they're aware of how your house looks like, any blind spots, they are ready to attack. So this evening, when you're parking up your car in your own garage, they are aware that the neighbors cannot see the garage from any of their windows. So you've just parked up and you have left your car thinking you're just gonna go into your house and say hi to your mom, when you hear two voices from two opposite angles saying, "Police, get down on the floor." And if you are Matthew Yussman, the protagonist of this story, you have been trained to observe these things. You are obviously CFO, you work for credit union, you have been trained in fraud before and observing how to spot anything like that and what to do in those situations. So Matthew was really calm on this evening in February 2015 in his house in Bristol, Connecticut, when this happened to him. He said he knew right away that these guys were not police officers. They didn't have any badges on, they were wearing goggles, they were wearing gloves, and his immediate thought was that this was a home invasion. Because of this training, he immediately starts remembering what these two were wearing. So from their face, from like the masks that they were wearing, to what they had on, to like what shoes they had, because they knew depending on, what they were about to do, they might blindfold him, etc. So he was just trying to remember all of the details and then replay them in his head the whole night. As this commotion is obviously happening in the garage, his 70-year-old mom gets alerted in the house, and she just gets out into the driveway and tries to sort of like see what has been going on. One of the men takes his mom Valerie into the house, he puts her in the bedroom and he ties her to the bed. And then when it comes to Matthew, they just left him in the living room while they were just sitting, chilling. They just tied him up, put a blindfold on him and told him, you should really get some sleep. Matthew, of course, like you and me, thought that this was bizarre, and he wasn't really sleeping during that night. He was just listening for the sounds, for the movements. He thought, okay, maybe it is a home invasion, right? They're going to rob whatever they can find in the house, and then they're just gonna go in the middle of the night once it's dark. He couldn't have even imagined what their actual plan was to be. But bright and early in the morning, remember, they know his schedule. They know exactly when he should be up and running and going to work. So they kind of just nudge him, and he still has the blindfold on. And he realizes they are strapping something around his torso. They're strapping something around his body. And he's observing it from what he can see underneath the blindfold, and he spots it's a bomb. But even from the looks of it, he isn't sure if it's fake or it's real. He said it didn't look like it had too many wires sticking out of it, but he just needs to assume that this is real and that these guys have just strapped a bomb around his body. This is when they break down a plan to him. He is gonna go to the office today, he's just going to drive, he is not to alert anybody else. At 8:15, as he is on the way to his branch, he needs to text his manager and he needs to ask him to meet him at the branch, to empty the vault and to pass him $4.2 million. He needs to work quickly because from the time the manager gets to the branch, they take all this money out of the vault and he loads them into the car. At 10 o'clock on the dot, he is going to get instructions about the drop-off. He needs to reach this drop-off point by 11 a.m. Otherwise, exactly at 11 o'clock, they will detonate the bombs. And yes, I said the bombs because the one that is surrounding his chest, the one that is wrapped around his torso, is not the only one. They have also placed a bomb right underneath his mom's bed. Just before they send Matthew on his way, They brought him into the room where his mom was just to see her tied up, just to see that there is a bomb underneath her bed, and they told him, "This is it. Would you want to kiss your mom goodbye?" And he said he just didn't want to give them a pleasure. He just told the mom, "I will see you later." And he knows that he would have probably regretted that moment, but he was just like, "I'm just not going to give them the satisfaction. This seems like some sick game that these two are playing." Now Matthew is driving to work, and as agreed at 8:15, he does text his boss, and he just texts him the whole situation. And the boss calls him, and Matthew explains to him, "Listen, I have a bomb around my torso, like there is one underneath my bed. This is exactly what happened last night. These men seem like they know my schedule, they know what I'm doing. Please don't call the police." But as soon as this call ended, his boss did call the police. And this is one of the best 911 calls I have ever heard. I won't play it for copyright reasons, but I will put like the transcript of it on the screen. It's just great because the dispatcher did not interrupt this guy. And as for his boss, you can tell that he had some customer service experience, because this guy just knew exactly, this is what I need to say, this is exactly the information that has been passed to me. It is the state of alarm, it is time to act now, this is what I need from you. It is just one of the best 911 calls ever. Matthew is now pulling up to his parking spot in front of credit union and just waiting for his boss to appear. But as he is doing that, he notices that police is surrounding the place. It's like, yes, they're trying to come from like different angles, but he's like, if I notice them, my bomb might just go off any second, because if they have followed me, they are spotting this as well. If they have a third person that is surveilling this place right now, I am done. I am dead. So he's sitting in the car having all the thoughts that we would have had. Probably thinking about Brian Wells. I'm not sure if he was into true crime. That's something I would be thinking about. But he is thinking about, like, are there any security cameras directed at him? Are people actually going to watch him blow up and then report that on national television? Is it going to hurt? That's one common thing that I think every single one of us would be thinking. Like, am I going to feel when this happens? Because people don't survive it to tell you what it feels like. So you can only speculate on that. So he's just there saying, like, my mind was playing tricks on me constantly. I was just sitting, just waiting for this guy to come, just praying that the outcome of this is anything but what I'm thinking about right now. Soon after, the police does approach him. Some of them go inside that credit union branch, obviously, to like evacuate it if there was anybody else already in there. And the other police officers get Matthew out of the car, and they're just like literally playing a shouting match because he's obviously wearing a bomb. And he's trying to relay the same information that he told his manager. And he's just saying, like, if he doesn't appear, if we don't get that money out of the vault, I am a dead man at 11 o'clock. So 10 o'clock comes around and he does get a text. The text just says ready, ? From the two fuckers, obviously. So he is relaying everything to the police and asking them, well, what do I do? Like, how do I avoid this from happening? Because I have 1 hour left to live. The text that came after that gave him a drop-off location. So again, he's just relaying this to the police, just hoping they should go there. They should go to his house. They should help his mom out. Get the mom, like, untied and make sure that she is not in danger. Like, just do something. Eventually, the bomb squad has been called to the location, but not before 11 o'clock came around. And Matthew described when he saw 10:59 on his screen, he just felt like that was the longest minute of his life. And then 11 o'clock came around and he was like, I'm still here, I guess. Then 11:01 came around and he's like, okay, maybe they're just late. They have played mind games with me the whole night and this whole morning. And he's just there, and suddenly the person from the bomb squad approaches, dressed in like all of their gear. And this person from the bomb squad team removes the bomb off his torso. And that is when everybody realized that the bomb just isn't real. That it's made to look very much real, but it was all just made of plastic. There were no explosives on it at all. What you can find online of this are just a couple of stills, just a couple of images, but what you can't see and what you can't feel is the hours that Matthew actually has gone through this in terms of having to strip naked in February temperatures, like in frigid cold. He actually suffered from hypothermia because of this, while the bomb squad was removing bit by bit, making sure that none of it will explode. And just the sheer terror that you're actually going through as this is happening. After this ordeal, his nightmares have only begun because he has been treated for hypothermia in the hospital, and as soon as that was over, he was invited to a police station for a grilling or interrogation that was followed by a lie detector test that he failed. Maybe because he has just gone through a traumatic experience, hasn't really slept overnight. Lie detector tests just need to be eliminated from any kind of procedure. They can't be used in court. What's the point? It's 2021. Why are we still using them? This was 2015. I don't care. Why are we still using it? Because what it allows for is for this kind of information to then be leaked to the media. So now the media has your name and you're associated with a failed lie detector test, so you must be hiding something. Oh, a victim has turned perpetrator. Let's of course make all the headlines about that. And now your name is there and it affects all parts of your life. Because of this, all of his friends, all of his co-workers are now under attack because everybody's asking them for questions like, hey, you knew Matthew, why don't you come give us an interview? Did anything cause this? Did anything trigger this? Do you believe that he was the kind of person that would have done this? Why has he done this? He was also suspended from work for 3 months so that they could do the audit for him, they can check his criminal background, but the clean audit actually allowed him to come back to work around May 2015. But there was one person that has never doubted Matthew, and that is his mom. His mom said, and I quote, "If he did do it, he'd be sitting on a beach right now and you wouldn't know where he was." And luckily his mom was right, in a sense that these two robbers appear to be a lot smarter than they actually were. And I don't want us to take this lightly, because luckily in this particular case, these two dumbasses had no idea what they were doing, and they were doing it just like across the state, so people picked up on a pattern. All of the victims were credit union employees. All of the employees would either give a phone call to their manager or they would be on the premises hysterically just explaining that a member of their family has been held hostage and that they're going to kill them if they don't manage to take X amount of money from the vault and give to these robbers. Why I don't want us to take it lightly, because had these been any smarter, all of these victims would have just been seen as perpetrators and in a lot of cases probably actually prosecuted and gotten the prison sentences that the actual robbers and the actual kidnappers have gotten in the end. The problem has arisen when the police would go to take the statements after all of these people tried to commit these robberies, and then obviously the police was on the scene and wasn't allowing for it to happen in every single case. But in every single case around the state, these victims would be giving completely different descriptions of these men. So there are a couple of sketches that I will include in this video and you're gonna see what I'm talking about. If you remember, for the most of the night, these victims would be blindfolded, so they didn't step away from that. But all of the victims would have the first glance of the suspect, so all of them would encounter them in the same way, in one part of their house, whether it was the garage, them pulling up after work, whether it was back door, wherever the blind spot was. And there, they would actually see the attackers. Well, rather the version these attackers wanted to be seen as, because they started wearing all of these different masks. So some of them were like creepy, doll-like masks, some of them were just like a bandana and then glasses. But what this made for is for all of these victims to give completely different descriptions. None of them could agree on the gender or the race. There were people that were telling it was a man and a woman. There were people that were sure it was two white men, but one of them was a lot older than the other. There were people that were saying it was a black and a white man. It was all over the place, which didn't make for great police sketches, and it wouldn't have led anywhere until they made a crucial mistake. You see, the mistake wasn't them leaving any DNA behind. Somehow, in all of these houses, even after they would chill for the whole night, they still would not leave no DNA. They were wearing gloves, they were always wearing something to protect that from happening. Also, they would steal cars in order for them to transport themselves to the victims' houses, and in every single case, they would burn those cars down. Until one day, they just didn't. And for you to really understand this, understand the personalities behind the attackers, we need to talk about a different case. When it comes to Brooke clients, she was also working for a credit union. The perpetrators found her details on the bank website and then have researched her social media pages and even went so far to put the cameras around her house because now they were scouting different areas. They couldn't be up in the trees like prime creeps on every single location. So here they actually put cameras around Brooke's house. This was also across state lines. This was in Tennessee. And one morning after Matthew Yussman's case happened and he was actually being considered as a suspect, Brooke was ready to go to work and she was also ready to drop her 3-year-old son to kindergarten. And the two robbers just attacked both of them and they put Brooke into the trunk of the car and the son with them in the back seat. They drive Brooke to her credit union branch and then there in a blind spot, just like outside of the cameras, they tell her exactly what she needs to do. She needs to go into her branch, ask her manager to open the vault and to get $350,000 out of that vault, take it all out in bags and she can have her son back. Otherwise, she will get out of that branch and find her son dead. And Brooke gave an interview here and this is just insane, and this is what makes me fear this so much more. So she goes into this branch, right? She is panicking, like there are pictures of this online. She is in distress and she's telling this manager, listen, this is the situation, they are holding my 3-year-old son in there. You need to open up this vault and give me this money. And the manager is just standing there and she's like, no, my job is on the line. We all know people like this. We all know people who are like, oh no, job before everything else. Like, what? This isn't even your company. Somebody's life is on the line. Or at least just say, I'm going to call the police. Like, don't say my job is on the line. This isn't about you. So Brooke is in distress and she's like, oh my god, this is going to mess everything up. Like, okay, cool, she's gonna call the police, but if the police comes, like, it takes a second for one of them to pull a gun. Like, they already pointed a gun at my son. Like, what do you not understand? Like, I'm going to get out of this branch and I'm gonna find my son dead on the street. Police gets called and Brooke is getting out of the branch and she's just praying that the son is there alive, that these two haven't done anything to him. And she tells them, like, listen, she won't open the vault. She's pleading with them, like, just let us live, just let me and my son go. Like, it's fine, I won't tell them anything. I can't even describe the two of you, you have masks on, all of that. So the two of them decide, okay, cool, back in the trunk. And she's like, oh my god, what is going to happen next? And they left Brooke and her son a couple of miles away, just in like a random field. And then they just drove away. And as you can see, especially in Brooke's case, I think even more than Matthew's, how crazy this looks like to the police. Like, of course, if you are in a police interrogation room and somebody is telling you of this story, it's like, no, they wore masks, so I can't really describe them to you. This is exactly what happened. They must have stalked me. They must have followed me home. They must have known all of my schedule. Police would be like, who the hell would go to this extent? Like, this is a stalking case, you know, rather than a bank robbery case. And also then you continue to tell them how it developed within the branch, that you still managed to get out, your son wasn't dead, they dropped you off in a random field. Nothing really makes sense and matches like any pattern of behavior that the police is already familiar with. So in this case, just like with Matthews, they would have probably tried to prosecute her if it wasn't for one beautiful dashcam video. Yet again, I will probably just put stills instead of a video for copyright reasons, but I'm gonna put the video in the description box. There was a whole Crime Watch episode on this case, and all of the footage is available there. So remember how I told you all of the cars they would burn except for this one, and all of the cars were stolen? Well, once your car is stolen, then you flag up the license plates, you actually report that it's stolen, and then that flags up to like the police officers once they're on the road, you know, like APB or whatever, I don't know what it's called. But sure, so on this occasion, the police officers within this police car get a notification that, hey, no, the car right there, right in front of you, is a stolen vehicle. So the two of them switch on the siren, switch on the blue lights, and immediately these guys, I don't know what was going on through their head, they started acting like they were in a freaking game. They were going zigzag, they were smashing into all of the cars that were ahead of them. Just complete like discontrol. They did not care what they were doing, who they were hurting, who they were smashing into. But after like a third car, I think, that they smashed into, it kind of slowed them down. The vehicle turned around completely. So the two of them realized, okay, it's gonna take us a lot of time, you know, like we're gonna get arrested. So they do what these police officers, because you can hear everything in the video, call jump and run, jump and run. And because the terminology of jump and run is very hard to understand, they jumped out of their cars and then they ran on foot. And they didn't catch them there. No, no. I was like, why isn't anybody like running after them? It was kind of like one of those motorways, so the cars on the other side are like going opposite direction, and then there are like some woods, so they just like jumped and legged it, and police was like they're literally on foot. Can somebody try to get to them? No? Okay, cool. Now on this scene, the police is obviously trying to aid and actually assist everybody that's hurt, everybody that they smashed into, and it soon comes to light that one of the cars that they smashed into was driven by the daughter of an FBI agent. So of course this guy, Special Agent Peter O'Hare, he's like, no, not my daughter, no, I want everybody on the road. We know the pattern. The two of them are actually going to steal somebody else's car. So I need as many people, as many police cars on the roads, like surrounding that area. They're just going to steal somebody's car. We can catch these fuckers today. And that is exactly what happens, because that is a pattern that they couldn't stay away from. What? Are they gonna just go on foot like their whole life? No, of course. They stole somebody's car. Immediately that person called 911, called the police, and the police car that was nearby was on the job. They immediately started pursuing this car. They had their dash cam on, they had like the car in front, and soon enough they start playing that siren again. Now from this dash cam, what you can gauge is that they probably had a conversation inside of this car, and they weren't doing the same zigzagging, like smashing into cars. It just seemed like there was a bit of thinking space here. And then what you see on the dash cam is just one guy kind of being thrown out of a car, just like jumping out, and then the car speeds away. So now the police again doesn't pursue the car because they have at least one of the suspects here. So they get out, they're like, get on the ground, they arrest the man. And what a man they have just arrested. They arrested a guy that was called Michael Benanti, and they bring him to the police room. So let's just briefly talk about who Michael Benanti was, how might have he gotten himself into this situation. Benanti was not a stranger to prison. He was actually in prison in 1992. His dad died when he was only 19 years old, and ever since then he felt like that pride of like, I need to take care of my family. And what that involved was basically robbing anything from banks to grocery stores. So he was caught after he actually gunned 2 police officers after robbing a grocery store. Nobody was killed during that gunfire, so he did serve some time in prison for that, but then he did get out. And from everything on the surface at least, he turned his life around. He became the CEO of his company, Prisoner Assistant. And this company was helping prisoners mostly with finances, helping them prepare for release by managing their bank accounts, improving credit scores, for as little as $5 a month. Now, of course, if you can trust me with anything, it is that I will find you on social media. So I have found him on LinkedIn the same way he has done with so many people. He deserves nothing else. And I just find the irony of this line. You know how people have their descriptions on LinkedIn? Well, this is part of his. I was repeatedly told it was not possible, but I never accepted that response and found a way to bring my vision and dreams to reality. So on the surface, Michael here had a girlfriend, had a great job, was the CEO of it. He actually even went on Shark Tank. He was featured like as a profile in Wall Street Journal. So he was, of course, now in the interrogation room saying all of this to the police. He's like, how dare you? I'm the CEO of a respectful business. He's in the police station losing it. He's saying like he has built this business for 8 years from the ground up. They're gonna destroy everything. If they release his name, his life is gonna go down the drain. For what? They should be looking for the guy that is in the car. They should be looking for the person that is on the run. If he was suspect in any way, why would he have jumped out of the car? Why would he have wanted to be caught? He didn't want anything to do with that. While he's saying this to the police, they are going through what they have found on Michael once they arrested him. So you see, once they have patted him down, they have searched all his pockets, they found this piece of paper and it kind of looked insignificant. It had like some numbers on it. But they actually realized, no, this is an address. And then they sent like part of the police force to this address, and it proved to be this random creepy cabin in the woods. But it wasn't just any cabin, because once they opened it, it just spoke for itself. It was as if they were seeing all of those portrayals of the police sketches in form of different masks. Then there were files on the table, and all of those files were dossiers of people they had been stalking. A lot of them prospective victims. This is some scary shit. Just imagine, because obviously this has been passed on to the FBI, to the police. They had to alert everybody else, like, hey, this person was aware of where you lived and was kind of stalking you for like months. Just imagine, people have been interviewed and they have said it transforms your life forever. You feel like you are followed from that moment on. They just feel, well, if they have been hiding like in my tree or have been placing additional cameras on my own property, what is to say that that won't happen again? Like, you just feel vulnerable immediately once you find this information out. So one part of the police force is a dislocation. Somebody is monitoring him, he's still just losing it, saying how this is unacceptable while in that police interrogation room. And a couple of police officers are actually sent to the prisoner's, what's it called? Prisoner's assistant. I always want to say prisoner's assistant. His company's HQ. It's a logical step, right? Go to the HQ, speak to the employees, and not just any employees. His girlfriend at the time was working as his own CFO. But once they reach the HQ of prisoner's assistant, people there tell them, you know Natasha, yeah, his girlfriend, well, she's dead. And they're like, sorry, what? He didn't say that to anyone? Sorry, when did she die? She died a week ago? Okay. So, of course, they're immediately, like, flagging everything, calling, getting the autopsy documents, like, getting the cause of death. Did he actually kill this woman and he has gotten away with it somehow already for a week? Like, do we have something on him that we can place him in prison immediately? But the autopsy report on Natasha actually concluded that it was death by suicide. It was a gunshot to the head. And of course, he cremated her body immediately. Like, within a week, he cremated her body and he also spread her ashes. And there was pictures of him spreading the ashes. I don't know who accompanied him to this event, but there is a picture of it online. because they still have him sitting there impatiently, they know that they need something quickly. They need something, otherwise he has all the rights to be like, well, if you have nothing to hold me on except from getting out of somebody's car that isn't even me driving it, so, you know, I didn't even steal it, I didn't know the car was stolen. They have nothing on him. He can get out and walk at any moment. So a couple of people that are still there in the police station, they're going through the CCTV footage on all of these recent locations that they know that Michael and whoever his accomplice is have been involved in. And they are just like zooming in because now they know that somebody has been stalking these people and has been scouting around these locations for time. So around like opening and closing times, they're just focusing on those times and they are zooming in on CCTV footage of the cars. And what do you know? Michael's face appears on multiple of these. They have it properly zoomed in. It's definitely him in these cars. And they're like, yep, that's the man. Just as if like everything they have just found in the cabin wasn't enough, they now have the face, have the name, they can connect him to the location where the victims have been disappearing from. So they go in and they just show him the picture. And this is when Michael, because he was probably always the smarter one of the two, he knew whoever talks first might walk first as well. So he knew he needed immunity and he was like, okay, cool, well, you want to know who the second guy is? I will tell you who he is, but let's make a deal. Eventually, because of whatever information Michael gave them, police sometime later managed to locate the second robber, kidnapper, just perp of all sorts. His name is Brian Widom. So who was Brian Widom and how did they form this beautiful bromance that they had going on? Well, Widom was actually sentenced in 1997 when he was 26. He was then sentenced to 26 years in prison after he was found guilty for robbing a Pizza Hut and another restaurant called Friendly's and a movie theater in Georgia. He was apparently known at that time as a polite bandit because even though he was using a gun, even though all of these were armed offenses, he was somehow polite while robbing all these places. I don't know. Nobody explains why. Nobody explains why these people are dubbed the way that they are, and we should stop giving them cool motherfucking nicknames. Cool? Cool. And you would be happy to know that once they met up in prison, their first initial plan was to start committing identity theft. But they were like, that's too much legwork. But this wasn't. Like the effort that went into this wasn't. What we know about Widom is that after he was released from prison in 2013, him and Michael met up in the casino in Atlantic City, New Jersey. I think the timeline of events is that Michael created that prisoner's assistant and then was still liaising with Brian while he was in prison. There were some calls that were played during this crime watch. It wasn't made super clear, but I think that was the timeline, so he was still sort of like helping him out while Brian was in prison and all of that, and then they have just stayed in contact even once he was out. And they should have known, they were in a freaking casino. If you play poker, like if you play any of the machines, yeah, this is how they get you. If you are good at first, then you're like, well now, why should I stop? The same exact thing with crime. They robbed one bank in Pennsylvania and they were successful and they were like, this is made for us. We are made for this job. This has found us. We have connected to this. This is our calling. And not just that, but they went from like a small bank robbery to planning to kidnap the high-profile employees of these places and then make those high-profile employees rob millions out of their own banks. Nothing. There's no connection. There's no like timeline sequence. There's nothing. I am trying to make the light of the situation, but the truth is that these two still managed to do a lot of damage. If you think about it, they would pick employees at random from their bank's website, then they would run these searches on Facebook, on LinkedIn, to understand them, to understand their experience, their pressure points. Then they would stalk them, learn their schedules, learn what they would do before and after work, learn when they were most vulnerable. And as you might have imagined, this prisoner's assistant thing was kind of a bogus scheme as well. It's like, yes, they were helping these prisoners, but they were also mismanaging their money and kind of using that money in order to fund this, in order to buy the masks, in order to fund all of these searches and everything, locating these people, petrol, like anything to support the planning of these robberies. And once they robbed the bank in Pennsylvania, they had to move to Connecticut in order not to be caught. And that is when they hatched this plan to kidnap a bank employee and force them to rob the bank for them. And that is how they came across Matthew Yussman. Now that they have them both in custody, both of them are in the same jail awaiting sentencing. And here is when Benanti comes with yet another brilliant idea. Because listen, Michael Benanti is nothing if he is not the man of the most brilliant ideas in history. This one is a bit brutal and just trigger warning, suicide teen, just if that triggers anybody. You can skip about next 30 seconds, I'm just gonna glance over it because they don't go into further detail. But basically Benanti told his friend with him in jail, listen, I'm going to get hold of a razor and I'm going to cut my wrists and my throat, I'm going to commit suicide. He thought that he will do it successfully. And then what you do, you go to the police and you just blame everything on me and you won't get to serve any time in prison. You're not going back to prison, bro. So Michael does exactly this. He ends up in a hospital and, surprise, he doesn't die. But before Widom actually learns that his friend is alive and well, he rats him out. He goes to the police and he tells them, no, Michael Benanti was behind all of this. It was his idea, these were his steps, it was his plan, and he just tells them all this information. And by doing that, now that they know that Michael is alive, well, Brian strikes a deal with the police. So in March 2016, Brian pled guilty and he was sentenced to 42 years in prison. And Michael Benanti, because of all of this, because of all the guilt that Brian put onto him, got to serve 4 life sentences. And just as if that wasn't enough, they also added 155 years to this sentence. Like if he survives 4 lives, if he is like, I don't know, doing this better than like a cat, then yeah, he also gets 155 years. You would be pleased to know they're not in the same prison. Brian stayed in Tennessee and I think Michael was dispatched in California, again because completely different sentences that they have to serve, and just because I think somebody probably put a word in like don't put them in the same prison, they're not gonna be up to no good. So what did we learn today? What are the takeaways of the day? Don't commit crimes in Tennessee. that is one. Maybe not the most important takeaway of the day, but hey, sure as hell is one. Because, yeah, this is still one of their harshest sentences for everything, like bank extortion, holding people hostage, all of that. I'm not saying they don't deserve it, just saying they should have maybe researched the state and the legalities of it before committing crime. Listen, committing crime takes effort. You gotta know true crime to do true crime. And also, just don't. Because the effort. Just lie on the couch and chill and just watch other people do it in movies. It's a lifestyle. It's a choice. It's definitely a choice. As for the actual protagonist of the story, Matthew Yussman, he went to therapy for about 2 months to just cope with the trauma. And he said during these months he mostly dealt with feeling of guilt, like could he have done more, would he have reacted differently, what could he have done to just like handle the situation better. And I love the note that he ended this interview on because it's such a positive outlook and truly is the only way you should be looking at a situation like this. He said, the thing that really got me through everything was that my mother was safe, my staff was safe, I was safe, and they got no money. How could you ask for better results than that? What a great segue to actually talk about the outcomes, to talk about the results. Because this is it when it comes to Benanti case, Polite Bandit case, Matthew Eustman case, whatever you want to call it. That is it for the case. But then this is where my fear kicks in. Because as I told you, we shouldn't be taking this lightly, because had these guys not made these mistakes, had they not by accident been caught that day on a dash cam, how many people might have actually gone to prison because the police would have believed that they were the ones trying to extort and rob the banks. Also, just know that this is the information I have found on the internet. This is like something that I think might be useful. There are no guidebooks online. This is like people's discussion on forums. So just to say, I'm not like a professional giving advice here. If anybody else is though, if anybody worked within the police force and dealt with these kind of situations before, or if you are bank tellers, please drop comments below. I really want to know what the actual protocol is, because again, legitimate fears right here. Save us all. The main takeaways for me, number one was you need to prove duress. You need to prove that you were under duress, that your life depended on the compliance to the captors, to people that kidnapped you. And that's not on you. So if you ever do find yourself in these situations, get attorney. Get attorney, explain everything to them, and just ask them, like, listen, this is exactly what we need to prove, that I was under duress. What I would advise doing, like, if you are ever, as Brooke was, in, like, somebody's car, DNA. Leave it all. Like, pull your hair. Like, I don't care. Just leave your DNA all over that place, because in that case then you can be like, well, why the hell would I be in a trunk of somebody's stolen car? You can't connect me to the stealing of that car. I was literally at my location. You know, now they can pin like your cell phone location, so I was literally at home and then I was here. So somebody kidnapped me from then to here and I was in somebody's trunk. Like, I would not have left my son with other people. So like, you can prove different things depending obviously on CCTV footage and stuff. But I would say just immediately, if you are kidnapped anywhere outside of your house, taken hostage, just go into the thought process of, I'm going to leave my DNA in all the places. Obviously, Matthew Yussman's case, a lot more difficult. He's driving his own car to work. He needs to communicate with the police. And I think in his case, he has done everything right. I just think that the police kind of needs to be aware of these cases as well themselves in order to get the bomb squad there, not just in the nick of time. Because if you think of the case of the collar bomb, Marjorie Dale Armstrong, Brian Wells case, if the bomb is real, they're going to detonate it as soon as they suspect, as soon as they don't hear from you, as soon as you don't check in. So I think the police kind of needs to be aware of these cases, just if it happens, because this was pretty recent, it was 5-6 years ago. And maybe have a protocol in place of describing the bomb. I'm not trying to do like, you know, the GP services that have like the online system now and you have the app and you can speak to your GP, but that would be ideal in these kind of circumstances where you can just say, okay, this is what the bomb looks like. How do I know if it's real? How do I know if it's 100% real? Because then you can at least stop like freaking out that this is the last minute, this is the last 15 minutes, this is the last hour of your life. But on the other side of things, I also looked at bank tellers and like what they have actually been trained to do. And as you know, they should have a silent panic alarm, so they can just press that. So if it is that kind of robbery that we are thinking about here, then try to communicate to bank tellers, because they should know. And then they will be on your side as well. You have sort of like a witness. So just explain to them as soon as possible. Even just being like, hey, do you have the panic alarm? Just set it off. Just get the police here because I'm in danger. My life is in danger. This is what is happening. And also, if you're thinking about bank tellers, well, from what I have read, they are trained in these situations when it is the actual robber in front of them to make eye contact, when they are actually passing them on the money. They're going from the lowest towards the highest denominations so that they slow down the process and they allow the police to get to the scene. But as you can see from everything I could find, there is no guidebook for the situations where somebody was forced to rob the bank on behalf of somebody else. So the conclusion to this video really is that we have no real idea, no step-by-step process of how to cope and deal if we were ever to be found in these situations. Great. I love those. I love it. So I'm leaving us all with some more fear instead. Now, if it wasn't your fear at the beginning of the video, is it now? Yeah, let me know that as well. But That was not the goal. That was not the goal, by the way, whatsoever. But still, the goal is, if it wasn't clear so far, to open up within the comment section the discussion on this. What would people do? What would people that might have found themselves in these situations do? What would people do if they work for the banks, if they work for the police? How do they cope on each end? And then we can help each other, unify the response to something like this. And then we're all on the same page and there is no fear. Yeah, Maja, you tell that to the person that has a bomb around their chest and they're thinking it's the last minute of their life. Listen, okay, you're not helping the outcome of this video whatsoever. So that is it for Gone Bad this week. You ruminate on that information that I have instilled input in your brain this week, and I will see you guys next time. Bye. Bye. Jesus, what is it? Yes, molestation. Yes. Where are you going, bitch? What we are picking up on is that they might have been actually okay as bank robbers. Maybe, probably not. But then they moved from robbing banks to kidnapping, which isn't what they were good at initially. So why move to that when you don't know if you're gonna be good at that? A lot of people looked at this picture online and a lot of comments are saying they clicked on certain videos because the guy looks like he's in a bear costume. I'm not gonna lie and say I was not one of those people. Listen, clickbait is great. If you can tell a story, clickbait works. You just need to make sure that you tell people the actual story they want to hear, so that it's not plainly clickbait. Wow, tips and tricks by successful people. You call yourself successful? You okay? Are you okay? There is more of a guidebook on different forums and places online of people asking and then others answering of how would you perfectly rob a bank versus how would you prove that you are not the person robbing a bank. Do we see a problem there? Maybe. There was just no connecting dots when it comes to these ideas and these plans. It was just as random as daylight. Is daylight random? That will not live up as an expression, I can tell you right now. It will not. Sunrise comes around every day. It's am I a joke to you, Maja? Am I random to you? It is literally the least random things out of everything you could have chosen. Do you really think cats have multiple eyes? Listen, I would not fuck with a cat. Cats are evil. All of the cat people immediately unsubscribing. Stop it. I can respect cat owners because I like that cats are as much as I dislike them, I recognize certain parts of me in a cat, okay? So cat owners, calm your tits, right? Because I still no, cats are Scorpios. The worst kind, not amazing kind, cats are Scorpios. It's the takeaways of this video all over the place.